Good morning and welcome to South Church. No matter if you are present here or joining us online, no matter your background or beliefs, no matter whom you choose to love, no matter what brings you here today, joy, sorrow, seeking, curiosity, you are welcome in this sacred place. On a beautiful summer morning, let us spend this time together, each of us on our own path, enriched by one another. My name is Kiper, and I'm one of a team of worship associates who have the honor of serving South Church and working with our minister, Reverend Ellen Quadgrass. Today, I'm grateful to be joined with Kirsten Hunter, our Director of Lifespan Ministries, Music Director Jonny Peiffer, Congregational Administrator and amazing singer Jennifer Leyden, and AV Technician Ben Abbott. Thank you. Joining us in the pulpit today is Tanna Clews. Tanna is presently the CEO of New Hampshire Women's Foundation and has served on the boards of remarkable organizations, including A Safe Place, Planned Parenthood of Northern New England, and here at South Church as chairman of the board. She and her family are active members of our beloved church community, and it's a pleasure to have her speaking here today. For those of needing assistance, our ushers will be able to help you with personal listening devices and large print hymnals if you need them. We also invite you to hang out for some time of fellowship right after the service in the front portico and front steps of the church for tea, coffee, and conversation. It is important for us to remember that this building, constructed over 200 years ago, was built on the territory of the Wabanaki and Wanderkook people. They were stewards of this land for generations and never gave it up. The paradox that we are forced to embrace is to use this building for the purpose of love in the shadow of this unfairness. May we bring this truth in our hearts to live in new ways, to inspire action towards restorative justice, and to realign our relationship with this piece of the earth. Thank you for being with us today. And now some announcements from Kirsten.
Good morning. Lovely to see you all. I love the little fluttering fans. There's also fans back there if you need one. We just have a couple announcements. You can find information about them in your order of service in the first inside page. One of them is that noise from the fan in the back. If you're having any difficulty hearing toward the back of the room, just move forward. It's much easier to hear the sound system from forward in the sanctuary. Reverend Ellen has a few requests for people who would like to help engage in creating worship this summer. She's looking for poets and poetry lovers, and she is also looking for your favorite hymns, as she will be bringing back those two services, the poetry service and the hymn sing service this summer. So if you're interested in participating in either of those, please read a little more in your order of service. And the other thing I'd like to lift up is we will be having an all-church book group read in September. Reverend Ellen and I will be joining the South Church book group to have a discussion on the book See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love. It was written by Valerie Cower, published in 2020. It's a really remarkable book, and I highly encourage everyone to read it, whether you are or are not able to join us on September 11th for that discussion. And that's all I've got. Thanks for being here.
Return again, return again, Return to the home of your soul. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are. Born and reborn again. Return again. Return again. Return to the home of your soul.
As we light this chalice here, we invite people watching at home to light a candle or chalice of their own. I offer these words today from the poet Rumi. Embark on the journey of love. It takes you from yourself to yourself. Please rise in body or in spirit and join me in reciting the mission statement printed in your order of service. At South Church, we nurture spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people and inspire one another to act faith in the larger community. I'm not gonna lie, it's hot up here. Early into my senior year at Exeter High School, my parents sat me down for a little discussion about college and what was in store for my future. They lovingly suggested that due to our family finances and particularly my underwhelming grade point average, that it might make sense for me to consider joining the military. Or, they said, maybe take a year off after high school. In my entire life, I've never made a decision more quickly than in that moment. Little did they know, taking 1 year off would lead to taking 26 years off, but that's water under the bridge now. I decided to move to San Diego. I'll never forget arriving there, taking my shoes off, walking on the warm sands of Ocean Beach, watching the palm trees sway and the waves roll in. It was a wondrous place. I think I raised my arm and planted a flag into the sand that day and said, I will live out the rest of my days in this place. I had just arrived. A year and a half later, it was time to move on. I never looked back. I found myself driving a 1965 VW van up the coast of California. The drive was very treacherous, heavy rains, steep cliffs, sloppy steering, questionable brakes. I arrived at night and stayed up to watch the sunrise, kiss the top of redwoods, illuminate the rugged, rocky coastline. And then it was just 72 degrees all day, every day. The energy of the people I met was fascinating. So many life travelers questing, seeking, searching. Here I had found my new home, my new tribe. I vowed never to leave that place. 6 months later, I was on the road again. I traveled a bit and wound up in Burlington, Vermont, a phenomenal city. The music, the colleges, the artisans, the tight-knit community with progressive ideals. I met the love of my life there. We had our first child. I had truly settled down at last. I made plans to live there forever. I made it 10 years, but the pull of the countryside was just too strong. We bought a fixer-upper and moved to East Montpelier. Here, though, we found all the magic ingredients for a wonderful life. A local food system, community action, a loving school, hiking, skiing, bottomless buckets of maple syrup. We added 2 more children to our crew and mapped out their childhoods in this special land. We were Vermonters now. We dug in, grew some deep roots in this place we would pass the rest of our days. We moved again 7 years later. I came home from work. My partner, Kate, said, "I think I need to live by the ocean." And it was at that moment that I realized this wasn't the first time she'd mentioned that. So like a good partner, we literally moved 3 weeks later to Maine. We found a place to rent. We got the kids in school. Luckily, we found South Church. I don't know if we'll live here forever. I think I've learned my lesson about that. But right now, it's the right place for us. In retrospect, I can track my own spiritual path through all those places and memories. Growing up in New Hampshire and attending Rye Congregational Church was a foundation of Christianity as my primary reference point. San Diego, for me, represents spiritual independence. Santa Cruz left this imprint of energetic forces and psychedelics and Hare Krishna. In Burlington, I found a spirituality in art and music. In East Montpelier, we had the religion of family. And in York, this present story, I seem to be experiencing a spirituality of introversion, reflection, and the thoughtful, loving community of this church. Our paths may lead us to many places, places that influence us, imprint on us, and transform us. The beautiful paradox to me is that while change is clearly inevitable, the path itself is somehow permanent, ever-changing, and yet ever-present. Please rise in body or in spirit for our opening hymn, "For the Earth Forever Turning," number 163 in the gray hymnal.
Okay, I don't know how many kids we have here today. It looks like they are all up to, I see a couple. I'm going to invite anybody who would like to come forward, whether they are young or old, for a time for all ages. This story is a story called The Friend's Journey, and it is about 2 people who became friends and stayed friends their whole lives. Here we go. Hi, Paula. Welcome. It's nice to have you. So, these friends were named Ollie and Stella. Ollie was a person of precision. For as long as anyone could remember, Ollie was somebody who had a plan and knew how to make it happen. They were never late for the bus in the morning. They always had their homework ready on time. And by the time Ollie got to high school, everyone respected them for all of the hard work and accomplishments they had already achieved. Stella lived down the road from Ollie, and she was a little different. Stella was often described as a free spirit. She saw life as a grand adventure full of twists and turns and unexpected things around the corner. Her room was messy, but it was full of all kinds of cool stuff she had found in the world. Her homework was rarely turned in on time, if at all. She was late to school almost every day. But people knew Stella was a fun person to be around, and she always had some new idea cooking in that little brain of hers. Ollie and Stella didn't know each other all through elementary school, even through junior high. But in high school, all of a sudden they found themselves in the same homeroom 2 years in a row, their desks right next to one another. And one day, early on in this new encounter with each other, Ollie looked over to Stella as they were watching their watch and waiting for homeroom to end so they could get over to class, real class. Stella was just gazing out the window. She was humming to herself, and she was smiling. And Ollie said, "Busy day?" And Stella said, "No, but it sure is beautiful." And Ollie said, "I hadn't noticed." And Stella leaned over to Ollie and said, "I always try to notice. It's easy to miss it, but most of the days are beautiful." And Ollie looked at this person he had never encountered before and thought, that might be true. And a few times that day, as Ollie was sitting in class, working hard and getting things done, Ollie would look out the window and notice the clouds. A few weeks later, Stella looked over at Ollie during homeroom, and Ollie was working hard on something, and Stella said, "Is it late?" And Ollie said, "No, actually, it's not due for a few weeks. I'm just getting a head start." And Stella kind of looked at Ollie quizzically. A head start? She had never tried that kind of a thing before. But that night, she got home and she thought, And she took out her school notebook and she actually started an essay for English 2 weeks before it was due. And she thought, actually, this is kind of nice. This is a little less stressful than my usual style. And that's how their relationship went. All through high school, Stella and Ollie were inseparable, and Stella and Ollie were perpetually fascinated with each other because both of them were incredibly different people. And they stayed friends through college, and they stayed friends through their early adulthood. Then after a little while, sometime in the middle of their life, they actually made a plan to go on a trip to Europe together. And all through that trip, Stella would pull Ollie off the beaten path and help Ollie meet the craziest people and have the wildest adventures. And Ollie would pull Stella back in time to catch the train to wherever their next destination was. And as adults, long into their life, one day, Stella and Ollie found themselves at a birthday celebration. It was Stella's 80th birthday. And Ollie stood up and he said, "I'd like to make a toast to Stella, who has, for my whole life, been the person who's taught me how to look for surprises and open my mind to adventures that might be." And Stella stood up and said, "I'm going to make a toast for Ollie, too, for always being ready to pull me back to catch the train on time." And that is the story for today. But one thing I wonder is who are the friend journeys in your life? Who are the people that are showing you another way to look at things? How cool is it that we get to do this as people, adventure in this world together, and look through our own eyes and through the eyes of the people we love? If anyone wants to come downstairs with me and a few other cool people, we're going to do a craft today.
During the month of July, our collection will be shared with Seacoast Family Promise, chosen by our collaborative leadership team. Seacoast Family Promise provides temporary housing, food, and shelter to families through a structured journey utilizing SMART goals: trauma-informed care, employment education, and housing search, financial education, parenting, and other effective tools leading families back to stability. Learn more at seacoastfamilypromise.org. Please give as you are able. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Good morning. It's great to be with you on this incredibly humid day. As you may know, last month we lost 3 beloved community members within a few days of one another. Jane Kavanaugh, Bob Nilsson, and Sue Thoresen. It is remarkable and astonishing that we lost these 3 in such a short amount of time. The loss of just one of these individuals feels significant, yet to lose all 3 in rapid succession feels almost impossible. 3 very different, exceptional human beings, all members of this community who had very different relationships with this congregation. Individually, they were beloved and each had immense impact on the seacoast. Together, they represent the very best of South Church and the rich patchwork of our South Church community. I, like many of you, was lucky enough to have relationships with all 3, each going back several decades. In the past month, I've vacillated between sadness and relief. Sadness that I've lost 3 friends. Relief that their pain and suffering has ended. And since I was asked to provide the sermon or to speak today, God knows why, but I couldn't let this moment pass without remembering each of them, knowing that you, like me, may be feeling their loss, and that with their services in the distance, it might be nice to take a few minutes to remember them. Whether you knew 1, 2, or all 3, or if you didn't have the opportunity to meet them, we all have been touched by them as we sit in this space that they helped shape, cultivate, and flourish. There truly is so much that could be said about each of them, but I'm going to try and be brief. Jane was always ready with a quick smile and a sparkle in her eye. She exuded warmth and care and appreciation for everyone around her. I always felt like she saw everything from those smiling eyes and held such compassion for each of us. Whether it was from across the room in the oceanic dining room as I negotiated with my children on what they needed to eat before they could rejoin the band of wild children outside, or as I rushed from one meeting at South Church to another, I'd look up and Jane would be watching me with a smile in her eyes. She always had something nice to say, and her warmth welcomed you like a hug. Among the many things she was part of, most notable to our family, was that she was one of the founders of Seacoast Outright. More than 30 years ago, she and her peers made it possible for gay youth, like my then teenage wife, to feel belonging, love, and acceptance. What a gift. My wife noted, she always made me feel cared for with an authentic self of care and compassion. I think those of you who knew Jane will agree. She was one of the kindest people you have ever met, and she was beloved by so many. There are 3 things I remember that immediately come to mind when I think about Bob Nilsson. Drawing, music, and humor. Always ready with a joke. The first thing out of his lips almost always was, "Have you heard the one about?" I loved his laugh and the way he always asked how you were doing. A keen observer, he'd capture things in his drawings that the rest of us might overlook. But when you'd see his characters on paper, one couldn't help but admit that he had gotten it just right. When was Bob not drawing? At church, the farmer's market, the press room, his weekly trips to Boston Children's Hospital, where he'd spend his days drawing the patients being treated. Bob recorded the remarkable and the ordinary. My wife and I are the proud owners of many of Bob's drawings, all of which memorialize something very special and dear to us. Our wedding 23 years ago, our outings at our family lake house, our first home. Bob's outhouse warming party was a staple in the early years of our marriage. Yes, you heard that right. Bob's outhouse warming party. Every fall or winter, Bob had a party in the woods he owned in Berwick, Maine, that had a small cabin and an outhouse, obviously. You'd drive for what felt like forever until you got to a place where you parked and then followed the not very well marked trail through the woods, eventually arriving at the outhouse or the cabin, depending on what mattered to you most, food or going to the bathroom. It was the quintessential Bob gathering, quiet, understated, full of love and caring. That is who Bob was. And Sue. One of the very first things Sue ever said to me was, "I'm a Smithy too. What are you going to do with that degree?" Referencing the fact that she too had graduated from Smith College and she expected that I was going to do big things. Granted, I had just moved to this town, I'd married into a new family, and this strong woman was suddenly expecting so much from me. She was a close family friend who over the years became a colleague, a mentor, and a friend. She was strong, brave, courageous, and she consistently supported this church and this community. She never minced words and would be the first to tell you exactly how she felt, giving you praise as well as criticism or what she thought you might do better next time. The last few weeks of her life embody in so many ways everything you need to know about Sue. When it became clear that her cancer had gotten the best of her and she was supposed to enter hospice, she was taken to the hospital by her husband, Bob, and rather than going into hospice, she wanted to make sure that her book was published first. So they put her on semi-hospice, meaning they put her on an IV and she wasn't able to eat. But immediately her family flew in and her husband and her son created an office at Wentworth Douglas so that they could edit the last version of her book. And that was on a Monday. And on Friday, her much anticipated "I will not die before my book is published" book arrived at her hospital bed at 10:30 a.m., where the family got to watch and read her book as she sat there, proud that she had completed that. But what's most impressive to me is the fact that her family knew how important it was to her. Sue was an incredible manager, and she managed the last few weeks of her life, thanks to her loving husband Bob's support. Sue, Jane, and Bob were part of the rich tapestry of this community. Individually, they were friends, mentors, partners. And as we take a quiet moment to reflect on the three of them, I share an excerpt from a poem by Maya Angelou entitled, "When Great Trees." And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, "They existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed." Now we welcome you to light a candle of joy or concern, something that you are looking forward to or grateful for, or something you are concerned about. Friends watching at home are invited to share their joys and concerns in the live chat. You can tell I'm not a pro at this. I sat down without my order of service and couldn't remember what happened next. Ralph Waldo Emerson Ralph Waldo Emerson is believed to have said, "It's not the destination, it's the journey." This quote highlights the tension between being more focused on the destination versus being more focused on the journey to the destination. I think often about this concept of journey versus destination, all the time really, as it has such a significant impact on my family. And based on the number of times recently I've overheard people talking about journey versus destination, I think there may be a number of us who actively think about it. In a minute, I'm going to ask you to think to yourself whether you identify with the journey or the destination. But in case there's anyone in the room who doesn't understand what I mean, let me lift up an example. In a relationship, whether that be a friendship, a marriage, between siblings, with your children, etc., there are usually two types of people. One focused on the journey, one focused on the destination, or as I'm going to refer to those people, the journeyer and the destinationer. It sounds terrible, but stick with me. The destinationer often has their eye on the finish line, getting to their destination. They've purchased the tickets, know the departure time, have reserved parking, calculated what time they needed to leave for the airport, and have all the information for the hotel. The journeyer has packed her bag and is wondering which Starbucks they'll stop at on the way to the airport. They didn't pack a book, but they know there's a bookstore at the airport. Although they're running 5 minutes late, they're sure to pack themselves a snack because they may get hungry on the way to the airport. And while they don't remember what airline they're flying on, they do have a general idea that they are going to Hawaii today. So which one are you? Who do you identify as? The journeyer or the destinationer? And are there relationships where maybe you have more than one identity? Might you be a destinationer in your marriage, but a journeyer when you travel with your friends? I dare say that each of us identifies one way more than another, and that depending on your relationship, they play a big role on how and which way you swing. I have been known to say on more than one occasion, going to Hawaii is a lot of fun, but first you have to get there. You guessed it, I'm a destinationer. I come from a long line of destinationers. In my family of origin, you get to places as quickly as you can. When you go to visit grandma, the point is you are going to visit grandma, not where you're stopping on the way. You get up early in the morning, you go to the bathroom before you leave the house, and you get on the road early to get to grandma's as early as you can. Growing up in Montana, where it's normal to drive 3+ hours to visit family, it was always a point of pride how quickly you could get somewhere and how few stops you would make. Stopping for fuel was the exception, but even in, if you were a gold star destinationer, you fueled up the night before. To be honest, I really didn't know that there was another way to live. And then I met my wife in college. And for the first time in my life, I came to understand that any task, any errand, any trip was a journey. A quick trip to the grocery store could become a 2-hour affair with stops at the coffee shop, a yard sale, or helping at the lost dog that only you saw on the way to the grocery store. Dinner reservations were amorphous. They were not static in time because who knows what might happen on your way to the restaurant. Most of the stories my wife's family of origin would tell were never about the destination. They were always about the journey. Whereas most of the stories from my family of origin are entirely about the destination, unless disaster struck. A flat tire, an accident, plane canceled, road closure, God forbid. In fact, I'd say that we were such good destinationers that we are experts at overcoming obstacles to make sure we reached our destination. My new family, the family I married into and lived all the way across the country from my family of origin, saw the obstacle as a reason to expand, change, or celebrate the journey. Early in my marriage, I used to try to solve the problems or overcome the obstacles that the Clews family faced. Missed flight? No problem, I'll find us a new one. While on a family trip to Acadia National Park and our van had been towed and we had to get to the cousin's wedding, I hitchhiked and I found us a way to get there. I'm pretty sure my mother-in-law wanted to kill me. Tanna, there's no reason to get so worked up about this. It will all work out. I was so confused. There was a problem that needed to be solved. Our car was missing. We had a wedding we had to get to. I came to learn, far too slowly, I'm afraid, that these derailments, the chaos, etc., helped create the tapestry of my new family's life. That they enjoyed the chaos and the crazy, celebrated the adventure that the problem presented, that they fully embraced the journey, whether that was a trip, an errand, a task, or a chore, or quite frankly, none of those things because they had a journey on the way and forgot what they were actually going to do. Like so often when my mother and father-in-law would be late to join us for dinner, like Thanksgiving one year, where they were supposed to bring the sweet potatoes, but they arrived over an hour late with not yet cooked sweet potatoes. Why? Because my mother-in-law had seen a batch of holly berries that she needed to cut for Christmas. And so she arrived with those holly berries and needed to take a shower because ticks. And, the sweet potatoes had to be cooked, but she'd had a great journey on the way. Or the time my father-in-law, while putting up Christmas lights, because we didn't hire anybody to do that, on the 3rd floor of the family home, somehow managed to get himself stuck 3/4 of the way out the window, the lower sash falling on his calves as he dangled from the window below, yelling to us as my wife, mother-in-law, and I sat playing Scrabble. Eventually, he came downstairs, harried and exhausted, and we all laughed about the story. I don't think we ever talked about the lights, but we definitely talked about the story. Or the time my father-in-law and sister-in-law, my wife and mother-in-law, were on a cruise, and my father-in-law was convinced by my sister-in-law to go back into the port to buy the piece of jewelry she really wanted. And when they arrived back at the boat, the ship was gone. Never fear, I would have had a heart attack, but not them. My father-in-law quickly started doling out cash to the harbor master, who put him in, let's just say, a small boat to rush them to the cruise ship as it was beginning to leave the harbor. But as they got closer to the cruise ship, they discovered that the cruise was going faster. It was leaving the harbor, and the boat was too small to catch them. So he handed additional money over, and a larger boat pulled up next door, and they flew after the cruise ship. And while you may think that this is a joke, there are enough people in the room that have heard this story before. Rest assured, this is the truth about the journey, that you can, in fact, catch a cruise ship. And that cruise ship, having left a young woman and her father at the cruise port, will lower a ladder, and the young girl and father will climb up the side of the cruise ship. The whole while my mother-in-law was in the shower, and my wife, only an adolescent at the time, watched her sister and father climb up the side of the cruise ship. That is what it means to celebrate the journey. But the thing is I'm not really here to regale you with family stories. There are endless family stories. Instead, I would just want to talk for a few minutes about what it means to have two polar opposite families, two polar opposite roles come together to figure out how you can have both destination and joy, and how we choose to embrace and accept these roles, learning to navigate life together, and when necessary, change roles. Before I met my wife, I didn't know the world could have such color. Experiencing the journeys with her and her family was enthralling, exciting, and life-changing for me. And I'd venture to say, having some structure and stability in her life, all of them actually, they did probably appreciate the fact that I hitchhiked us off of Acadia so that we could get to the wedding, I hope. Enrich their lives as well. Opposites really do attract. But as we get older, each of us, It's harder to remember all the good. It's harder to remember how we celebrate the opposite. We face stresses in administering life, like raising kids, paying bills, jobs, etc. Journeys feel harder as we are rushed with lack of time or resources. Destinations feel harder to attain due to our capacity or abilities. You know, when I mention that I've overheard these conversations about destinations and journeys, it's almost always been a friend talking to another friend, talking about something that was hard in their relationship, essentially highlighting the tension between journey and destination. One spouse being focused on the journey, one spouse being focused on the destination. But when you step back for a minute, you realize that both the destination and the journey are gifts, and that they can't happen individually. They have to happen together. Without journey, we are void of creativity, possibilities, and I'd venture to say joy. And without destination, you're always seeking and never settling. Because if you're a destinationer and you're lucky enough to share a life with a journeyer, your life is richer, colorful, and maybe a little more chaotic than you prefer. And if you're a journeyer, I dare say, although annoying, that destinationer gets you to where you need to go, reminds you that you do need your passport or your license to board that plane, and also remind you that we're going to Hawaii this morning. So who are you? Do you like the role you play? Are you a journeyer or a destinationer? Are you both? I don't really feel like we can really be both, but maybe you figured out a way, and if so, afterwards, tell me. Our relationships in our life are richer because there's journey and destination, and it's never too late to adjust. I had the opportunity to learn what it was like to be a journeyer. I still had a lot of destinationer in me, but I got to feel what that was like to be a journeyer. And if you've only ever been a journeyer, I would suggest that you try being a destinationer. Find the passports, book the hotel, figure out how you're going to get to the airport. Thank you. I'm so sorry. Please open up your hymn books to hymn number 1010, which I think might be in the green book. Yes.
It's 1,000.
1010.
It's 1000. It's number 1,000.
It's not.
It's 1,000.
Morning has come, arise and greet the day. Dance with joy and sing a song of gladness. The light of hope that shines upon each face.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and on our journeys until we are together again.
And if you would stand and grab the hand of the journeyer or destinationer next to you. Feel free to tell the other person who you are, journeyer or destinationer. May we all go forward towards our destination, celebrating the journey. And may we carry with us the people we love and the people we remember forever. Amen.
You're the soul who understands the scars that make me who I am. And through the drifting sands of time, I got your back and you got mine. And if you bear a heavy load, I'll be your wheels, I'll be the road. I'll see us through the thick and thin, for love and loss until the end. 'Cause you carried me with you, from the highest of the peaks to the darkness of the blue. I was just too blind to see. Like a lighthouse in a storm, you were always guiding me. Yeah, it's true. You carried me with you. From the day it all began, yeah, you were there, you took my hand. And when I hurt a bit too deep, you watched me as I fell asleep. And when my head was in the clouds, you found a way to pull me out. You picked my heart up off the ground and showed me love was all around. Yeah, you carried me with you, from the highest of the peaks to the darkness of the blue. I was just too blind to see. Like a lighthouse in a storm, you were always guiding me. Yeah, it's true. You carried me with you. Oh, we'll be sitting on the world together, watching as the days turn into night. We know how to brave the stormy weather, and we're never giving up without a fight. If you should bear a heavy load, I'll be your wheels, I'll be the road. I'll see us through the thick and thin, for love and loss until the end. 'Cause you carried me with you, from the highest of the peaks to the darkness of the blue. I was just too blind to see. Like a lighthouse in a storm, you were always guiding me. Yeah, it's true. You carried me with you. Oh, you carried